beyond Flypower in this particular use case that we've gone over, what are other ways, maybe get the brain cells of our listeners going on other ways that they can be thinking about AI to tackle climate change, which is probably something of concern to many of our listeners. And I think a lot of our listeners also want to be making a positive social impact with the kind of data science that they do and the companies that they start, the products that they build. So to get those juices flowing, to get those neurons firing, what are some other examples of ways that AI can be used to tackle climate change?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Prior to Flypower, I worked with a disaster resilience nonprofit. And so what they were doing, their name was IBTS, and they were basically advising municipalities on how to prepare for a natural disaster. So in climate tech, you have the prevention kind of companies, which is where Flypower sits. Like, can we prevent climate change from happening? And then you have the basically the climate change is going to happen. How do we deal with this? And so this is IBTS was on this other side of how are we going to be ready when there's a natural disaster. And so municipalities that they'd work with would be like towns or cities that wanted to be ready for a natural disaster in their area. And so they would engage with IBTS. The IBTS team would take 40 hours on average to produce like their initial assessment of that area. So let's say it's Fairfax, Virginia. They want to understand, hey, what do I need to do to be ready for natural disaster? There'd be two people producing this report. They'd be doing extensive research kind of all over the web to be able to produce this. And so their finished product was actually 26 pages of content and conducted by these two individuals.
Very cool. And so this was IBTS. What does that stand for?
IBTS stands for Institute for Building Technology and Safety.
Nice. Okay. So while Flypower is doing its best, its utmost to avoid climate change happening as much as we can, there's other folks out there like IBTS that understand that the world has already warmed and we're already seeing disastrous effects. Some regions are more impacted than others. And IBTS is looking to be able to come up with solutions to prepare regions that are likely to be affected. And so, my apologies here, but what's the AI here is that there's a generative AI element in what they're doing?
Yeah, so they IBTS, as a part of that research effort, they would go to the county's website first off, so orlando.gov or whatever the county.gov typically, and those websites are massive, and so what they would be trying to do is ascertain how whether they had taken kind of the best practices themselves to be ready for that natural disaster. And so in addition to their website, they'd go to these other ones, they're like CDC and FEMA, and really trying to understand that particular area. And so by working with, so they came to me and said, hey, can you make this easier for us? We want to try out generative AI. We think this is a really good use case. And so we went down that path and said, okay, well, give us your finished reports. And they didn't have that many, actually. They had like maybe 10, I think it was less than 10 finished reports. And so again, this is a great use of generative AI. I don't need a ton of finished reports. I just need to generally understand the questions. So their reports were like questions, and then here's the answer, that they had produced from these websites. So yeah, taking that and being able to do that for a county, it's never seen before.
Gotcha. So this is actually, there are quite a few parallels between what you're doing at Flypower and what companies like IBTS are doing. What's different is the underlying data that they're using for their generative AI systems and for the kinds of reports that they craft.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think it's like this example is like kind of symbolic of what many other companies are kind of going through right now, which is, how do I store this data so that when asked a question, it picks the right thing, right? To on the retrieval augmentation side, but also what questions should I be asking? And so and that that's kind of the fun part. But yeah, how do you like tweak this so that it's not hallucinating, that it's not coming up with the wrong stuff?